I know in 2002 you went through some challenges, some real estate challenges. Share with the audience what happened there.
Well, I started out as a tenant. Like most of us are a tenant at some point in our life. And I was a really bad tenant. Like you don't want to rent to 20-year-old Adrian because we had parties. So we had pudding wrestling parties, spaghetti wrestling parties, mud wrestling parties. And these are all inside the house or the garage. We even parked a
Yeah.
motorcycle inside the house.
Yeah, you guys were crazy.
Yeah. But that led me to actually buy a house because we got evicted again and again. And then I said, I'm just going to buy a house. I met a mortgage broker. He said it's easy. That's what I did. Well, then I learned how bad it was for the landlord because I became the landlord. I also
Mm.
lived for free because I rented out my rooms to those same friends that helped me get evicted. And I split my mortgage up amongst them. So I didn't have to pay a mortgage.
So let me ask you this, Adrian. Did you guys throw the same parties in your house as you did in the rentals?
Not the exact same,
See?
but we did throw some. And I learned real quick why we were being evicted. I didn't understand it too
There
well
you
then.
go. There you go. The philosophy changed, right? From a tenant to an owner. So you
Oh,
just have to be, yeah, you got to be ready for that. So you got this house, right? And you have these tenants. Now you have to go to basically being the cop of the property. When you were back then, you were the quote unquote tenant criminal at the property. So what happened with that property?
Well, I was living there for free, and at 20 years old, living for free and not being underneath mom and dad's roof is pretty cool.
Yeah.
yep.
And pretty smart.
Yeah. I mean, I was taking action. What I was advised to do, I took action. And then a few years later, I said, I think I want to do this again. Now, back then, all I knew was the banks. So I went to the bank and they said, yeah, you can buy another house, but you're going to lose a little bit every month. And don't worry, 2 years from now, you'll just refinance. And they said, real estate goes straight up. Don't ever worry about it. Well, I bought
Mm.
basically at the top. So I bought it and then real estate started coming down. I went to refinance. I couldn't. And I had an adjustable rate mortgage. So my payment
Oh,
actually started going up. Went from losing a little bit every month to a little bit more. I eventually gave the home up as a short sale, and that was a big ding to my credit, my ego, but also mainly my integrity because I said I was going
okay.
to make these payments, and I didn't.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. Okay.
that's your statement holds true for the saying, don't take investment advice from those that make commissions.
Yeah. And those that
Very
aren't
true.
in the business, like they were in the business of, yeah, commission, but also just selling me that. They didn't actually have
Yeah.
rental property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not investors, not investor, and they're making a commission. Just be leery or cautious as to where they're coming from. Great
Yeah.
point.
So, yep. Yeah. Excellent point. So you went through this turbulent time where you lost the property, you had your buddies as tenants and everything like that. How did you transition into mobile homes, man? How was that something?
Well, let's just fast forward probably about close to a decade. I'd bought a few single family houses. Again, I only knew the bank side. And then I
Hmm.
stumbled into Azreia. I fell in love with the speakers, the educators, and all the networking. And that's really the first place I even heard of this mobile home thing. I had heard of them, but in a very bad stigma. They're hurricane
Okay.
missiles. You don't live in them. They're trailer trash. All the bad stigmas. I didn't hear anything
Hurricane
else.
missiles. That's a good one.
We got lots of fun words, terms we'll use here.
I'm writing it down. I'm doing
Yeah.
a post right now saying podcasting, a podcast show on aluminum castles, man. I love these. Was it hurricane? What is it? Hurricane what?
Hurricane missiles,
Hurricane
tornado
missiles.
missiles,
Hurricane.
Yeah.
tornado magnets. But but making fun of all this, we'll get to why it's funny, but it can be profitable because if people only want to believe the stereotypes, they're never going to invest in them. And if you
Right.
get educated on them, you understand it's just a joke. It has a little bit of
Hmm.
truth to it because
Yeah.
yeah, they're not as strong, but that just means they get a better return. And if we do the right things, they can be very profitable.
Right.
So I'm in Central Florida. I'm not sure if we mentioned that. I'm in between Tampa and Orlando. It's where I do all my business in a little town called Plant City. Some people probably heard of Lakeland. It usually hits the bigger
Yep.
newspaper.
Lakeland. Hmm.
Well, that's where my properties are. So we have hurricanes passing all the time. Yes, it's a risk, but if we do it all the right way, it's not as big of a risk. So if I can do it and everyone else can do it in Florida, you can do it anywhere else in the country. Because the argument is that they're so unsafe with hurricanes and tornadoes.